I'm Les Carlisle, I'm the Group Conservation Manager for andBeyond. Being involved in the game capture industry in its absolute infancy in the country back in the late 70s and early 80s, when everything we were doing was pioneering. We were learning how to catch giraffe during the years when I did a lot of giraffe capture. And as we progressed through the capture industry, being employed to build Phinda Private Game Reserve meant there were a whole pile of things that had never been done before. We were the first reserve to reintroduce cheetah and lion to the same reserve. The process was to get the cheetah established and hunting before we brought the lions in. The other thing was, of course, to try and mix lions from different prides, put them together in a confined space and make sure they don't kill each other, and we used sedation to do that. So that was a first. And then we were the first private reserve to get adult elephants, and we got the adult elephants to help settle the sub-adults that we'd got out of the Kruger National Park. Our predator reintroduction techniques and habituation processes have been applied in India for habituating leopards. They've been applied in South America for habituating jaguars. It's quite remarkable how the idea of Phinda was born. One of the ideas was to try and find a more secure means of funding conservation other than government funding. When I was first shown the property, we drove past private game farms, we drove past pineapple farms, we drove into cattle farms. I had to try and turn those brown and white cattle into black buffalo. Then you could sort of get an idea of what it was going to look like. There were a few farmers that were doing really well, but they saw the opportunity to sell their land and step out. And for us, it was a great opportunity to secure wildlife land. The real challenges were trying to convince the cattle farmers. They were angry with me that I'd told them they were going to lose their cattle, which was their lifeblood, and they were going to convert to wildlife. So I got booed off the stage, and I had real aggression from the local farmers. And we had 3 rural communities that we had to engage with as well, so 3 local chiefs. And I was absolutely flabbergasted that the local chiefs bought into what we were doing much quicker than the commercial cattle farmers did. Today, it's all wildlife. So they've converted because it makes more sense, and they made more money out of wildlife than they did out of cattle, because you're farming with nature rather than farming against nature. And there's nothing more rewarding than seeing a herd of animals run out onto a piece of land that they haven't been seen on for 100 years. A giraffe stepping out of a truck and start feeding on a tree that it hasn't fed on for 100 years. Each of the columns of care that we look after, we've had significant successes. We've expanded the land, we've expanded all of the wildlife populations, and we've expanded the benefits to the people outside of the parks. And I never expected to be standing here 30 years later with 28,000 hectares of wildlife real estate, and with a model that's been duplicated in 3 continents around the world. So, and just the most remarkable privilege. Look at that. And it's just amazing to think that 30 years ago there would have been cattle on this property. So being able to recreate the wildlife has just got to be one of the most satisfying things in the world. It's not something I ever expected in my life. While I might be getting the reward now, it's for an unbelievable model that's had hundreds of people involved in developing it. And particularly my wife, who's been at my shoulder through the whole thing. She's probably the one who deserves it much more than I do, because she's been the corner that I've had to lean on whenever things are difficult. So what an honor indeed.